Hello, welcome to the CIRS Healing Collective Expert Guest Video Series. I'm Jenny Johnson, the host and facilitator of the CIRS Healing Collective, which has been a resource for aspiring CIRS overcomers to share and connect from around the world since 2020. I'm a shoemaker proficiency partner and CIRS coach, and most importantly, an overcomer myself. What you're about to see is a 10-minute excerpt from a 90-minute group discussion that members of the CIRS Healing Collective got to have live with this expert guest. If you would like to see the full 90-minute replay, come on over to the CIRS Healing Collective. We have a robust video library from the past 5 or 6 years of so many expert guests. Better yet, you'll be able to join our future monthly live discussions with experts to come. We'd love to have you. So I'd love for us to start by just hearing a little bit about Lindsay's personal background. I know you have your own experience with some health issues that may have informed the clientele that you work with. Would you be willing to share a little bit about your background, Lindsay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your personal story?
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Jenny. I appreciate it. It's nice to meet all of you guys. Jenny told me a little bit about kind of where you guys are coming from health-wise, and I could definitely see the similarities between what I've been through and kind of what what some of you guys are bringing to the table health-wise. So really, came to realize for me, particularly given some of my gastrointestinal consequences of Lyme and things, and some of the immune abnormalities that cropped up along the way. Food, having a really foundational nutrition plan for myself became really, really crucial. So that's kind of how I eventually shifted into the nutrition space and ended up going on to get my master's degree in human nutrition. And I really started to notice that there was a space that was kind of lacking, in the discussion of nutrition for facilitating recovery from Lyme and CIRS. So felt like I might have something interesting or unique to share in that space. So just a few slides here on personalized nutrition for CIRS recovery. And when I refer to CIRS, I'm referring to the combination of mold or biotoxin-induced illness, and also speaking to people who've dealt with Lyme or other tick-borne infections too, since we know that can be a part of CIRS as well. So hopefully you can see all the text here. The first thing I'll have clients do when they come to me, if they haven't already, is remove from their diet what I consider to be the most common dietary inflammatory triggers. So you may not have heard carbs referred to in this way before, but I refer to flour-based foods as acellular carbohydrates. That's what we see them described as in the nutrition literature. Basically, acellular carbohydrates are foods where the carbohydrate has been pulverized and released from plant cells. So think your gluten-free bread, pasta, not to mention all the gluten-containing flour-based items. Those foods will tend to have a pro-inflammatory effect on the gut microbiome and contribute to the metabolic dysfunction that can arise in CIRS. So I really like to get those out of the picture as much as possible first. I will also talk with clients about removing industrial seed oils. So AKA vegetable oils. So things like canola oil, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, these oils that are relatively recent additions to our diet. They come up a lot in processed foods. The problem with these oils, they've been framed as being very healthy, somewhat ironically for a number of decades now, but we're coming to learn that these processed oils can really upset our balance of essential fatty acids in our bodies. They provide a lot of omega-6 fatty acids, which in higher quantities can be very pro-inflammatory. And when you're already inflamed, adding more fuel to the fire is not going to be super helpful. And they also contain some different byproducts that come up during processing of the oils that can be inflammatory too. I'll also have people just avoid processed foods. They're not clearly not great for our health, definitely not for those of us already struggling with some degree of inflammation. And then, for most people with CIRS, I'll see that they tend to do better by avoiding gluten and dairy, but there's some nuances there that I'll, individualize on a client by client basis. And then for those who are struggling more with like a mycotoxin sensitivity or a high mycotoxin burden, we might consider removing some foods that tend to contain relatively higher levels of mycotoxins. So some of the foods that tend to most often contain mycotoxins include cheeses, ones that are mold fermented, like blue cheese. Grains are actually a very significant source of mycotoxins, with corn and wheat being among the top ones. And then coffee, chocolate, unfortunately, cured meats, peanuts, wine, and beer can also be sources of mycotoxins. And then, what to eat. So I have some food groups I'll have clients focus on with a lot of individuality thrown in there based on where the client is coming from. So for those who do eat animal protein, accumulate mycotoxins, and those mycotoxins can then be deposited in the fat of the animals, and we may end up eating that. So, to the degree that clients are able, I think pastured or grass-fed meat, poultry, and eggs are ideal. I do think that consuming fatty cold water fish is really important for most of my clients. So that would include, these fish are a good source of omega-3s. So those omega-3s help to really dampen the inflammatory response elicited by CIRS. And then there's also some other nutrients in there like vitamin D, selenium, iodine that help to regulate our immune system and hormones and antioxidant defenses. Non-starchy vegetables, I usually have, them try to eat from certain categories like brightly colored veggies, leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables to try to get as many different micronutrients and also phytochemicals as possible, because those phytochemicals can help reduce inflammation and support gut health too. And then last but not least, or second to last, I'll have clients really try to shift into eating more whole food, minimally processed carbohydrates. So, instead of a gluten-free bread, choosing whole steel cut oats or whole rolled oats, or sweet potatoes or root vegetables, focusing a bit more on that, as well as whole fruit. And then healthy fats are going to be really important for balancing something called the eicosanoid response. I should have changed that. That's from my practitioner presentation, but basically it's a response related to omega-3 fatty acids. It helps to regulate inflammation. So that's why we want to eat those fatty cold water fish like salmon. And then healthy fats can also help to support satiety and weight regulation. Whether a client has lost weight as a result of CIRS or has gained weight, we can address that in part by adjusting fat intake. And then almost the end of my presentation here. So probiotic foods offer some interesting benefits for people with CIRS, one of which is that there's some research coming out indicating that different lactobacillus strains of probiotics, which come up in probiotic supplements, but also in fermented foods like sauerkraut, yogurt, kefir, can actually help bind onto mycotoxins that are passing through the gut and metabolize them and prepare them to be eliminated. And then prebiotics are foods that help to support the growth of the probiotics in your gut. So I try to have clients eat a wide variety of prebiotic foods. Some examples would be like asparagus, artichokes, oats, blueberries. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, glutathione is a really crucial antioxidant, so we want to eat foods that help to support glutathione synthesis. One of the most potent food-based promoters of glutathione are broccoli sprouts, which are actually the baby version of broccoli because they contain a phytochemical that causes our body to increase its own production of glutathione. And then other cruciferous vegetables like mature broccoli, cauliflower, radishes, and allium veggies like garlic, onions, leeks have also been found to support glutathione synthesis. For some CIRS clients I'm working with, they have some degree of fungal overgrowth, oftentimes in the gut. So we'll incorporate various antifungal foods, like various forms of coconut with the different fatty acids in there that have antifungal properties, different culinary herbs, spices. There's a lot we can do there.
A great overview of how nutrition can play such an important role in our recovery from chronic illness, especially if we're dealing with mycotoxins or, in your case, Lyme disease. I mean, all of these things, especially the anti-inflammatory and things that support detox, these foods are really like good for all of us, right? Even if we're not battling a chronic illness, but especially when we are in an inflammatory state from a biotoxin illness, doing what we can to use nutrition to be our ally rather than our enemy just makes so much sense. Oh, thank you so much for that. I want to open it up. There are a lot of us here, and I know that some of you guys really have, nutrition is a big part of either an obstacle for you or something you're really learning a lot about and seeing some neat benefits with. And I know you have some questions